February 19th, Hutchings, and we'll go recess ourselves.
Time answered.
Manager.
Thank you all. And we're going to go through the agenda like this. And we'll start off with review BoCC at 2 o'clock, when we will, and I'll say it right up front, and it'll be say it times today afternoon. There is no County Commission next Tuesday, February 26th. So with that, the review of the SAP agenda, and we'll go to pledge allegiance led by Commissioner Edwards. And there'll be an opportunity to number one.
Yes, Commissioners. I think you may have public testimony. Follow up to testimony from Washington, 80%, and that is who resolution related to the Second Amendment of the Constitution. You will have this further on your agenda. This proposal made related to that. Given the heads up, the group represent group is going to be make their point.
Okay. Any issues? Okay. The no. Go ahead, Megan.
Your testimony about.
Okay.
Three.
All right. Agenda count.
And again, I will on related to the Washington group. I will also follow up on the letter that you received from the LPTO Association on November 5th. I will follow up on the gift basket received on the CEO of Lafayette promotion for African American, I believe, and as a result, the gift basket. I think a gesture. However, not as we receive those gifts. We are prevented from taking those gifts. They will have an upcoming fundraiser. Those baskets will be put in a good use. We'll close that loop, so making sure that it's a
Wonderful. Comment? Question? Good. That takes us to item.
As a result of that, to represent. In this case, resolution is for you to appoint Commissioner Gary Edwards as a director, Tammy as alternate, as a second alternate, and June Tunheim.
Okay. Knows that.
Well, as you may recall, terminal in just because you need to take that form as a result of we have what they respond.
Okay. Any questions? Human Resources approved bargaining agreement.
You also review this 3-year the Association from the short account the sheriff fees. And this is a 3-year. This is a good contract. It includes a good increase, and there's, but it's tied to CPI, where they have maximum CPI. Take you back again in 2018. Last contract had a wage clause with the sheriff, and their wage opener negotiation of 2018 will be. We ended up going to binding. That process, but all having the process and learn from that process. Contract is intended to open in a
resolution to franchising.
You have received a couple of in the last couple, and this is the related to the renegotiations that we're going to in the franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement with Compton is not just the county; it's also in negotiation with the cities. In this case, with a much Comcast, as you know, company in the country. Not only the cities of the franchise agreement that is coming up, we see if as a staff we not have enough time to consider current franchise year 20, and in the franchise agreement bring that in.
All right. E, Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah, this is appointment of Commissioner E.J. Zita of Olympia, and as you know, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is a little bit, because the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is laid out by statute. The jurisdiction has to appoint a representative to this board. From and somebody one who take the function and appointing this particular member. So this is from the port, from Commissioner to serve representative for the advisory committee from 2018 to 2022. Okay.
Waste member.
The previous appointment case is the appointment from the city of Olympia, and the appointment is to a regime for solid waste and its duration 2019, February 2000.
All right. Nope. Moving right along. F, Public Works Board.
The appointment, then the appointments, noxious control. This, but this on the lead is there districts as a county community. They have different districts, and they're different. So in this case, the current member for District 2 has in the dishes for you to turn the appointment October 2000. At that point, the noxious weed advertise when that district the new appointment. So again, got formal the appointment will come to you.
That seems time to fill that position board. So me, hopefully,
to retire a bad debt from one of the programs within juvenile court. And the bad debt equated to just about over $1 million, which had an impact to the general fund at that point. And the reason behind that bad debt, it was an accumulation of uncollected fees that just accumulated over a period of maybe 20 years plus. As a result of that, the Board of County Commissioners sent a letter to the Finance Management Committee, which includes the county treasurer, the county auditor, as well as the county manager, and instructed this finance committee to start looking at all the bad debt and they start retiring on a small basis, because bad debt is part of our business. Sometimes there is some debts and fees that we impose to any type of services that we provide, and it just happens we just are not able to collect. So, and again, this is an attempt. Public Works has gone through that process, and for your consideration is to retire $76,921.11. And that includes a lot of sections of the department, including uncollectible debt for solid waste disposal, as well as water and sewer accounts that perhaps are no longer able to be collected. So that's any questions.
Anything?
I might mention it. It sounds like a lot, but is it spread over a lot of, not only a lot of time, but a lot of different businesses maybe?
Yeah,
that
this is
went under.
Yeah, and it's since 2012 is what all this what it called delinquent accounts they have been put in place. And the process goes that when we don't receive the debts, we send to a collection agency. And even after the collection agency is not able to collect those debts, that's when we have to retire, because it creates a hole in the books, financial books.
You said 2012.
Yeah.
Had it been paid off or had it been written off at 2012, and then that's new accumulation since 2012, or like in juvenile? I mean, we lost track about how far back.
Well, yeah. So, and that's when, again, as a result of the letter that you sent to the Finance Management Committee, all the offices and departments are going through that process just to make sure that you don't get the surprise of retiring this larger debt of uncollectible fees in delinquent accounts. So in this case includes, again, the water and sewer accounts. Either some of those individuals have moved on or they changed names, so there's just no way to find them. In some businesses, they use the Waste and Recovery Center to dispose solid waste. Those businesses are no longer in place, so it's very difficult to get a hold of those individuals who are in debt.
And every attempt has been made to collect.
Every attempt has been made, and when every attempt has been done, that's when you see this coming before you.
And the collection agency doesn't receive any funding unless they recover the debt, correct? We're not paying them anything up front.
Right,
So,
and we
let me finish this. This $76,000 is actual dollars that was due, not fees or whatever we've paid to the collection agency.
No, this is not paying any collection agencies. No. You're right.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything else on that one? Okay. Okay, thank you. We're live.
We're live.
Welcome back.
And this particular item is related to the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative 14.
Oh, the one we just talked about?
Yeah.
Okay. And 5B, still under Public Works. This is the boating speed limit on Lake St. Clair amendment to the county code.
Yeah, this particular action, you held a public hearing on February 5th, 2018, where you received public testimony. You had the opportunity to follow up on the public hearing the last Thursday. And as a result of that conversation, this particular item is for your official vote this afternoon. And what it does is changes the 5-mile restriction related to the water level. It changes the water level threshold from 69.5 to 69.9. So what it means that as soon as the lake level reaches 69.9 or below, the 5-mile-an-hour restriction will no longer be part of the lane.
Questions?
No.
Nope, me neither.
And this is consistent with Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative number 8.
We're moving on to item number 6, Public Health and Social Services. But before we get there, I want to ask, I was looking at my calendar trying to figure out when we had the last Board of Health meeting, because we've had such a wonky schedule because of snow and holidays and such. It looked like it was January the 8th. And the next one is March 12th. Is there anything pending decision-wise with BOH that, ooh, bless you, that we need to concern ourselves with?
Well, you know, the last week's meeting was canceled due to the weather, and we were looking as to where we could probably reschedule the next meeting. And considering that you don't have a meeting next week, the commissioners will not be here, then the next option to reschedule last week's meeting would have been March 5th. And then a week later will be your regular meeting. So as a result, we just canceled the February 5th February meeting, and you will see some of the items on March on the March Board of Health meeting.
The March
One of the
12th.
items that you had, it is unfortunate perhaps, it was the I believe it was a resolution related to is the Heart Health Month, which is February. Whether when you review the agenda for the March 12th, whether you like to do a retroactive, you know, a resolution or not, or you can probably take that this afternoon, or
Robin?
I was going to ask about this afternoon because it's ready to go.
And I did wear red today.
and you can probably do that as a Board of County Commissioners, not necessarily a Board of Health.
Okay.
But
Any input
for your
regarding that?
I didn't get the memo that we were delaying the red. I had my red already last week,
I did too.
but that's fine to do it.
Gary,
separately.
anything?
No, but I would like to go ahead with that today.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
okay.
we'll add that to the agenda then.
Thank you for that. Now, still on item 6A under Public Health, interlocal agreement with the Thurston Mason BHO for TST funds.
Yeah, this is a normal agreement, quote unquote, where we contribute, we allocate treatment sales tax to the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. And this is in the amount of $2,174,057. And this is for a period of January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. This is geared towards providing services to youth, adults with behavioral health needs. In this particular proposal, also asked the department director to sign that agreement and also give 5% of additional budget authority to cover any unexpected items. And Carrie Hennon, I changed that.
Is that,
Carrie Hennon is here to give you additional information if you have any questions related to this particular item.
well, hang on. Well, okay, I do too, but go ahead, Gary. Do you have questions?
Being this is a joint venture with Mason County and we're contributing $2.1 million, how much does Mason County put into this?
So this only
Who
funds.
might you be?
I am Carrie Hennon.
thank
I'm
you.
the program manager for the treatment sales tax. I'm part of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. So this goes to the Thurston Mason BHO. Obviously, the Thurston Mason BHO is a joint venture with Mason County, but the Thurston County funds only fund services in Thurston County. So I think Mason County may put some of their funding to the BHO, but that would be entirely separate.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
Go ahead.
And these programs funded by this money were things that were vetted out and allocated. I mean, I just want to be clear about that.
Yes. So
This isn't a decision point about how this money.
Correct. This all went through the budget process that happened in 2018 for 2019-20, so kind of on a parallel, equal footing basically with the county offices and departments. The BHO, though they are separate, they obviously have a special role in the behavioral health system, so they were allowed to make direct requests of the fund through the county budget process, so it went through the TST advisory committee and through the board vetting process. And so all of that's adopted, and this is sort of formalizing that.
Just transferring the money that was approved by that process that you just described?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
All right, and I'm looking at the last several words of the action, and it says, agree to any amendments that don't change the scope and all that stuff, more than 15%, but in parentheses, it says 5%.
We'll change that to 5%.
To 5, okay, thank you. Anything else on that one? No? Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. 6B, 2019 Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention Request.
Well, where should I start on this?
The beginning.
From the beginning. So, and this is all related to the request for proposals related to the housing and homeless prevention. You took an action 2 weeks ago where portions of that will be going through the CIP process in 2019. And in considering that perhaps it's going to develop a new model as to how those funds will be distributed in the future. I believe on the last week, on Friday, there was a retreat from the members of the Community Investment Partnership, also known as the CIP, which the recommendation, I believe, at that point is going with an RFP that will have a biennial RFP. Not only that we cannot allocate expenditures in 2020, but the commitment for the 2019 will be something that will be in place, but at least having an indication what projects and programs will be able to be funded in 2020. And at that point, the financial decisions will be made by the Board of County Commissioners at that time. And also, I believe the result of the CIP meeting last Friday resulted on giving a little extra time to develop a new interlocal agreement with all the partners to develop a more different model as to how the housing and homeless funding will be distributed in the years to come. So this particular proposal is consistent to the previous motion or decision you made 2 weeks ago on the CIP 2019, as well as for future programs, for future years as to how that program should be distributed. Shelley Slaughter, the Director of Public Health Social Services, is going to be coordinating and drafting that agreement, and that will be a local agreement again between the county, the cities of Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, as well as the South County cities, as to how this whole new model of distributing the housing and homeless dollars will be put in place beyond 2020.
All right, and if you have any questions, we have not only Director Shelley Slaughter here, but we have Gary Aiden and Tom Webster as well, and they're at the retreat. If you have any questions.
I do not.
I'm not sure I understood the beginning of your
Yep.
comments about what happened Friday and how that's different than...
Yeah, as you may recall, and 2 weeks ago, you took an action stating that the RFP for 2019 is going to be reviewed by the members of the Community Investment Partnership, CIP.
Right.
This past Friday, where the members had a planning session, perhaps agreed to the RFP that is before you should include 2 years. But considering that the financial allocations for 2020 is beyond at this point, but at least the 2019 financial allocations will be made. And as a result of the current RFP for 2020, at least we will have an indication what programs and projects will be funded. So when the time comes in 2020 and we know how much money we have to allocate to those programs, at least we'll have a set of programs and projects that we allocated in 2020. That is a little bit different than what you approved in back 2 weeks ago. But I believe it's consistent with the overall approach as to distributing the funds.
Okay.
Got it?
And Go ahead.
So if the board should approve a 2-year RFP and the time comes to, in 2020, to actually make awards, are they then bound to a preconceived list, or will they be able to make changes as they see fit?
I believe the Board of County Commissioners have the ultimate latitude to make changes. So you do have the flexibility, and I believe the conversation on last Friday was to at least give the providers, the nonprofits, an indication that perhaps may have an option to continue with the services in 2020. But as I believe the RFP will be, there will be no financial commitments for 2020. There will be no assurances for 2020, because that will be another decision point they will have to make as commissioners.
Right.
But
And
the-
then,
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, the interlocal agreement then that we talked about is going to be focused more on 2021.
2020 and
forward.
beyond, yeah. So, and that's the model that I have described to you on a few occasions. And I believe, I believe at this point that all the jurisdictions, the county as well, are aligned to move forward on that direction.
And the wording in the contract specifically says there's no, even though it's a biannual, there's no guarantee of funding
Right.
at any level for the second year.
And that has to be very clear on their RFP,
Yeah.
and we just have to ensure that is the case.
And we just experienced that this last go-around as well.
Yeah. For the public's benefit, this proposal before you for 2018 has a approximate amount of $7,686,000. And that within the whole amount, there is many funding and many restrictions within the funds. Includes the Home Investment Partnership Act, the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Affordable Housing Fund, Homeless Housing Fund, the State Consolidated Homeless Grant, State Housing and Essential Needs, the HEN Fund, Veterans Assistance Fund, Treatment Sales Tax Fund, the Developmental Disabilities Fund, the Community Investment Partnership CIP, the federal funding for home. All that really accumulates to $7,686,000. And this afternoon, Gary will walk you through a little more in detail all the different funding and dollar amounts related to this program.
Great. Anything else, Ty? Go ahead.
I guess this afternoon I'd ask that if Gary walks us through those, that he explain each one of the acronyms.
Yep, and he will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Next is the commissioners and county managers items. That's when we go through and describe the stuff we've done all last week or two.
Yes, and I will make sure the public understand that you will not have a meeting this next Tuesday, as you will be, I believe, Commissioner Menser and Commissioner Hutchins, among some of the directors and other leaders in the county will be attending an emergency management conference. It's going to be located on Ocean Shores, and that is I believe it's a 4-day conference they will be attending.
Yippee. Okay. Then we have a public hearing at 3 o'clock on the Wycombe franchise.
Yeah, this is for your consideration. To hear public testimony related to a franchise agreement with the Consolidated Communications Wycombe. Depending on the public testimony, as any other public hearing, you have 2 actions for your consideration. One is to close the public hearing, and the other one, depending on the public testimony that you may receive, you may probably enact on granting the application to Consolidated Communications LLC. And again, second action, you're not bound to take that this afternoon. You always have the opportunity, depending on the public testimony, to reschedule a follow-up. And anyway, but that's just for your consideration.
Okay. Questions regarding that? Yeah.
And I guess I'd ask from your perspective, I know there was negotiations going on. Are you going to be making any kind of a recommendation to us on this? Do you think we did okay as far as I mean, I see the system didn't work again this morning here in our meeting room.
Yeah, this is again just to grant the application for.
Doesn't
the
talk
franchise
about
agreement.
what benefit the county or its citizens
And the
get?
negotiations will follow up before you will have a different action that you may consider when the actual franchise agreement is in place.
Okay.
This is just accepting the application. And this is, in the statute, is all the different steps that we need to take. So at this point, it's too premature to get to the point of the negotiations, how that franchise
Okay.
is going to be. Similar to the Comcast? No? Okay, so I'm giving wrong information. Michelle is the expert.
No, she isn't. But I've been living this. Michelle Underwood, staff to the board. So this YCOM, this community, it's only telephone. This has nothing to do with YouTube. It has nothing to do with cable. They have to have a telecom
Okay.
franchise to operate in the rights of way. So that's what this little piece is.
Is this the 50-year expired
Yes,
one?
what? Yes.
Okay,
You
good.
got
That's
it.
all I needed to know.
There you go.
Good enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's also important to note that a telephone franchise has no payment to the
Yeah,
county.
yeah.
And that's
We're
where it's
still
not at all
working,
like.
yeah.
Okay, I was
on that
thinking,
one.
I was mixed up. I thought it was the other one.
Right.
Yeah, we're just trying to work through the application, and then the lawyers do more about the actual agreement.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Consolidated's lawyer is out of state right now, so we need to move forward.
But there's another step the commissioners will take in
Yes,
approving the
we'll come
franchise
back.
agreement.
Absolutely.
This is an expired agreement with the Elm Telephone Company, and we're
Yes.
just renewing, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So it turns out Michelle is the resident expert. Okay. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for that clarification.
We're going to jump on the agenda down to public hearing pending decisions, treatment sales tax, since we have staff here. Let's go ahead and jump and do that. So Carrie, you coming up? Are you coming up? Shelley, no? Okay.
Commissioners, on February 6th, you had a briefing related to appointments to the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee. And within that briefing, Carrie provided you with a couple of options. And one of the option one and option two may not necessarily be all inclusive, all exclusive of each other. So on their option one, currently you have 7 members and a Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee. At this point, you have 3 remaining members, which as a result, you will have for your consideration a reappointment of Mr. Skip Steffen. It may be for your consideration new members, which is you have the applications, which is Ms. Chanita Jackson, Ms. Wendy Tanner, and Gina Thompson. Also, the other recommendation, perhaps, the other option will be for you to consider amending the Thurston County Code to increase the membership from 7 to 9. And that will give a little more flexibility and perhaps different perspectives as to how the treatment sales tax funding should be allocated to the many different programs and projects. So before you, and again, my personal perspective is that you don't need to choose either option 1 or option 2. You can probably go ahead and do both, meaning do the appointments that you have before you under option 2, and also direct the staff to go ahead and start working on amending the code to include a 9-member treatment sales tax advisory committee. Carrie's here to answer any questions. I just want to put that into the context that is, perhaps from my point of view, is not either option 2 or option 1, perhaps a combination of the 2.
Question? Yeah, go ahead.
I thought I remembered you saying that it would be like a flexible, like 7 to 9.
That's the proposal, yes,
Versus just-
and we would work with the attorneys on language for the code, but something like no fewer than 7 members, no
Yeah.
more than 9.
I thought that
something
was
like
important because part of the rationale was this embarrassment of riches of community members that want to be involved, but that may not be true
in a
5 or
year
10 years
2
from now.
or 4, yeah.
And you don't necessarily want to be bound because then you have trouble having a quorum and et cetera. So I liked the idea of the flexibility.
Anything, Gary?
I am, are we going to do the appointments
That's part of your decision, yes.
today? Okay.
You're not making the appointments today, but providing direction to staff. And we'll bring an AIS for your consideration.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
So if we do change the code, that takes a public hearing, and what kind of time frame does that take place? It's going to be like a 2-month process?
Well, at least, I'll say probably at least 2.5 months, if we can go ahead and do it right away.
And that does not cause or confound the TST process?
If I know the direction we're going in, I think we can work with it.
Okay, and the second question I have, Carrie, is what is your recommendation, 1, 2, or a hybrid?
My recommendation is 1.
Okay,
I agree with Ramiro that there's many variations on these recommendations. For example, the way we have structured option 2, one of the current committee members has said that he would actually resign if we went with option 2 based on the applicants, so it would be helpful to know that now, to know kind of what direction we're giving folks. And then even if it's going to take 2 to 2.5 months to amend the code, I would like to be able to give these people who have applied a month ago now some sort of answer that, yes, it is the board's intention to move that way. We have to go through steps X, Y, and Z.
and how many do you have? How many applicants are in the queue?
So we have 5
5.
applicants. If we go with option 1 of expanding to a flexible but up to 9-member committee, then the recommendation is to reappoint Skip Stephan and then appoint 4 of the 5 members. I think what Ramiro would probably counsel you to do is to do 2 and 2. Is that right?
So you have sufficient numbers in the queue, that's what I'm asking. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Gary.
Option 1 is, I heard you say something about 7 or 9. Option 1 shows
Just remain-
11, no more than 11?
Option 9 is status quo.
No, I mean option 1.
Option 1 is up to 9, and with Commissioner Mensah's clarification, that gives that flexibility.
I
And
might
option-
have put in the
But it
original
says-
briefing
it
materials,
says
I might
11.
have said 7 to 11. I think 7 to 9 is probably
Yeah.
a better number.
But in terms of what we're doing today, in terms of which people we're going to actually appoint, it's kind of dependent on, because otherwise, as you point out, we'd only have to be able to appoint 2, unless you knew that Mr. Stanton was going to resign, because we've moved forward on the expanded proposal.
I may caution you that if any member of any committee threatens to resign because of any particular action by the commissioners, perhaps I encourage you not to take that into consideration,
Yeah.
because you perhaps need to consider as to what is the best for the business and what is the best for the committee.
That's fine,
That's
but
just my
we've got
perspective.
3 people then, and we have to
Right.
change, we have to decide which 2 we'd
Right,
be appointing
right.
today. So that needs to be clarified, if that's what we're doing.
I would also not characterize Mr. Stanton's offer to resign as a threat. He is thinking about what is the best interest of the county and the committee, and he had offered to resign in order to bring in some new blood, if you will. So it's not.
Yeah, I would concur.
And I believe his wife just retired, so he has personal
Yeah,
plans as well
he's-
to consider, so yeah, it's not a
He's very
negative.
agreeable either way, and I
Yeah.
think if it remains a 7-member committee, he felt like, I might as well step off now after however many years he's been on, since we have the embarrassment of riches at the moment. So,
Yeah, he's a smart
He's
man
agreeable,
and
yeah.
dedicated, very nice man.
yeah.
So perhaps what I'm hearing is the board is interested in going ahead with option 1 as soon as feasible. And as a result of that, will you hold any appointments until that action is completed?
Can we do a 2 and 2? Just because if it's really going to take 2 to 2.5 months.
You need somebody for the quorum.
we have terms expiring in March, so.
Oh. Oh.
Did you have, did I remember that the order you've listed them here was kind of your preference order? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I would be comfortable appointing the first two that you've recommended, because I remember the discussion we had about them, if that's the right thing to do to get your spots filled between now and.
That would be helpful. And it would be, I mean, I guess, again, it would be helpful, I think, because people submitted their applications 1 to 2 months ago. I'd love to be able to get back to them with what the board's intention is, even if it hasn't officially been processed yet.
So, okay, so let me revise my conclusion, if I may. So we'll bring this afternoon, since considering we don't have a board meeting next week, for you to consider reappointment of Mr. Skip Steffen, and also an appointment of Ms. Janita Jackson and Wendy Tanner this afternoon. And also you provide direction to staff to go ahead and start working on changing the code to have up to a 9-member TST committee.
That works for me.
Okay, I just want to clarify, though. In the written description, it says 11, and I guess that's going to be changed to 9.
Yeah. This is just a recommendation, yeah.
Okay.
I think the language that I would recommend that I then talk to the attorneys about would be something like no fewer than 7, no more than 9,
Yeah.
if you all agree.
So okay with the reappointment? And then the first two in the list?
I'm not going to vote for the first 2. I want to have the voice of a private business on there. The only voice of a private business on those 5 applications is Bob Jones. So I plan on voting for Juanita, I think it is, Jackson, on top.
Janita?
Janita and Bob Jones. Now,
Okay.
obviously, that's just part of the process,
Yeah.
so we'll see where that goes. But
Okay. Good.
So just what I'm hearing is there is going to be 3 items, 3 appointment items this afternoon. One is the reappointment of Mr. Skip Steffen. And the majority of the board would like to bring 2 other appointments of Ms. Janita Jackson and Ms. Wendy Tanner. Okay.
I don't know if I'm overcomplicating this. So then, once the code is amended, you'll have the opportunity to appoint 2 more people.
right.
Is it possible to have the discussion about the board's intentions now, even if they can't actually make the appointment, and then maybe everyone's
No,
can get
because the
happy? No?
code has not been changed.
Okay.
And presumably, in 2.5 months, when, and if the code is amended or changed, will these be just the 3 remaining names that will come, or might there be 4 or 5 names by then? We don't know.
Well, it's not my intention to kind of publicize recruiting candidates. We just went through that process.
You
And
would have these 3,
Right.
because the recruitment phase is done.
Oh, it's done, okay, okay. So it will be these 3 names, unless
Right.
somebody withdraws. Okay. Any question? You good with that? You ready?
You get that?
Not now, just, you understand we're done.
So on March 5th, you will see an AIS for you to consider setting a public hearing to change the code. And that's the soonest that we can get this thing going.
And we'll get reminded of all this again?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, thank you.
Now I see the, 1, 2, we also have the county treasurer here. Can we jump down and take care of him? Is that right?
Yeah, whatever. you
County
like.
treasurer, would you please come up, please? Jeff Gabbin's in the house. Is this the county treasurer update?
Yes.
Because I know you're a busy man. We'll get you in and out of here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Are you done?
that. So Jeff Gadman, Thurston County Treasurer. I got a couple of items for you. The First one is a report out on my role on the financial part of the Capitol Lake Lower Deschutes Watershed Study Group. And some of this may be duplicative, and I think what I'd like to do in the future is maybe sit down with Commissioner Hutchings in your role on the executive committee, so that I'm not reporting information you've already reported on. So
We'll chat.
So this was basically giving us the summary of the scoping group that set up for the EIS. So they're launching the EIS study for the decision as to what to do with the body of water as it currently stands. For water resources, they're going to be again by reviewing existing and available data. At some point, as they explore the water quality issues and the water resources, they may end up moving further upstream, which I know was a concern of Commissioner Edwards. And actually, there was even comments in there about looking at the use of the nitrogen fertilizers by warehousers. So they definitely have your concerns at the top of their minds. The aquatic invasive species, of course, that's mostly the mud snail, and that's just becoming a thorn. No, it is a thorn in everybody's side. The question of that particular species is complicating the study of the sediment and what to do when they dredge. They can't, at this point, just allow the sediment to go into port because of the presence of the snail. At one point, port had permission to dispose of the dredge spoils in open water. Presence of the mud snail, now ecology is saying no, you can't do that, even though they've got studies that show that the salt water kills the snail. They're not sure about the long-term effects on the marine life. So one of the things they're looking at is the extra cost involved in disposing of that soil upland. I had asked the question, and they're going to look into it, if they could store it upland until the snails die and then dispose of it in open water, if that would be a cheaper alternative. So that's something that they're looking at. They're going to be looking at the odor issues. You know, anybody that's been here, well, there are many of us left that were here before the lake was formed, but you know, tide flats used to stink a lot when the tide would go out, and a lot of that had to do with effluent outflow from sewers and that sort of thing. So they're going to study causes of the odor issues that are laid down in history before the lake was formed and see if those issues are still present, if there's something that can mitigate those, should they allow the estuary to revert back. They're all looking at that. They're going to be looking at several simulated visual images of what the different options will look like so that they know how that's going to affect the visual environment downtown. Looking at the economics of the options that are in front of them. And then they're going to bring in, even though tribal considerations are not normally part of the SEPA process unless the tribe is directly involved in a particular study or permit, this group is going to bring the tribes in because that area down there around the Deschutes Parkway was a traditional site for trading and fishing. So they are going to include the tribe, which was very, very good news. Another issue on the sediment is that the last sediment data that they have for the flow of sediment out of the river is from 2007, so that's 12 years. So they're going to reopen that study and see what changes, if any, may have been made. This last meeting that I was at, which was January 10th, was the first one that Lot had a representative, and that's good because now Lot is got a presence on all three of the major work groups for this, with their technical expertise and their experience living on the waterfront there. I think they're going to be a great addition. One of the other issues they're going to be looking at, and this is just starting, is the idea of whatever option gets chosen, how does it get paid for and financed? And which, of course, is what the group is that I'm part of. Looking at the possibility of setting up a special purpose district, like a lake management district. If we do that, then what are the boundaries? You know, you've got to define who benefits from that. So how far out do you go? What would the charges be that would be involved in that? And that's just one of the options that's on the table right now. So that is a quick summary. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Question, go ahead.
Couple of questions. On the EIS and the upper Deschutes that you mentioned, is that assured that they're going to do that, or what? I didn't get that.
It sounds like what they're going to do is obviously start here at Capitol Lake and work their way upstream. As they work their way upstream with their water quality studies, if they see evidence that they need to move further upstream, they will. So there's no defined boundary as to how far up they will go. They're kind of waiting to see where the study takes them.
And then a follow-up, maybe you mentioned one, they're going to reopen a study. And I'm curious about that because the brewery for years got blamed as a contributing factor. They haven't been there for about 15 years now. Mm-hmm. So are they going to look into maybe those erroneous allegations against the brewery and see if they can find out where it was really coming from? Because the brewery has not had any input there for years. Things haven't changed.
It hasn't been framed as erroneous allegations, but they're going to be looking at all of those aspects. And that's one reason why they want to reopen the sediment and sedimentation study, is because that was completed shortly after the brewery closed, and to look at what's changed since then. But there was no specific mention of any particular property.
And the dredging that you mentioned, I think it was last dredged in '86, somewhere.
About right.
Somewhere in that area. Yeah. And why is it that they have to remove everything? They created islands before. Why can't they just maybe add to those islands so they keep the costs down? Is there any discussion?
The presence of the mud snail changed everything, and there's serious concern because they're prolific little creatures, and they're a real pain in the tush. And one of the pains that the mud snail has caused is the fact that now you cannot dispose of the sediment in open water. So as they dredge, they've got to look for evidence of any mud snail presence, whether it's carcasses or live snails, to figure out what to do. For now, ecology is saying you have to dispose of that upland.
I guess when you talk about disposing in somewhere else or in open water, I'm curious if they take the dredging material and put it right there. They don't even take it anywhere other than move it. It looks like they're not looking at the cheaper alternatives to me.
Well, and that's something I'll bring up at our next meeting, because that particular subject did not come up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to be clear, what the subcommittee, can you define what the subcommittee is that you're reporting back from?
Mine is the financial work group part. So we're looking at the finances that surround the long-term study. And right now, they've just launched the environmental impact statement portion, which should be done by next winter.
Who else is on the financial work group?
So Rich Hoy, City of Olympia, Justin Long from Lot, Ray Peters, Ray Peters from the Squaxin Tribe, and Kristen Swindoll from Department of Natural Resources. And then from DES is Deborah Delzell, Ann Larson, and Lynn McGuire.
Thanks.
As part of the financial subcommittee, when you said they're going to go look upstream as long as there's evidence to keep going, so that will stop either when they don't think there's any reason to go further or they'll run out of money, whichever comes first?
I would guess, yes.
Because you're not going to come up with more money. The state's not going to come up with more money, I wouldn't imagine.
I don't think so. You know, they're constantly looking at how they can tie this into federal grants. So there's always going to be a search for more financing if it's available.
Right, and that's tugging against the many recommendations that they go way upstream.
Yes.
Yeah, so they've got that tug of war. All right,
Yeah, I
Eddie.
mean, you know, I think what the commissioner brought up is a valid point. Everything that feeds into the Deschutes River contributes somehow to where the outfall is, right? And so the question when you're studying the environmental aspects of it is how far upstream do you go?
Right. Anything further? Gary?
No.
All right. Jeff, thank you. We have more?
I do.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right, so in my constant quest to be better at doing my job as treasurer and studying RCWs, I found in the last paragraph of RCW 8469020 a requirement that I report to you the amount of property tax refunds that were made in the last year. I'm supposed to do this in February, and talking to other treasurers around the state, there were some that were aware of this, some that were not. It seems to be a little portion of the law that has been lost to obscurity, but I'm all about making sure I'm on the up and up, so here I am. So I did submit the list of refunds from last year with the agenda item summary that I'd submitted, which turned out not what I needed to do. It lists the name of the recipient, the amount of the refund, and the reason for the refund, such as Board of Equalization, senior citizen exemption, and that sort of thing. I'm not going to go through the entire list here, but the grand total of property tax refunds last year was $2,718,607.83.
Say that again.
$2,718,607.83.
And that's across all taxing jurisdictions.
All taxing yes.
Right.
So that is not just county money. That's
Right.
everything. Yep.
The treasurer reports to us every year how much of the refunds are for each particular fund. And what we do is we add that to the property tax collections for the following year. So the portion of that $2 million that applies to Thurston County will be added to the 2020 tax collections.
And that's
for
the equalization
2019.
part.
That's the refund levy.
That is the refund. It's
Yeah.
the part of the refund levy. So we won't collect it from these taxpayers,
Right.
but the county will collect the funds in the
From others.
following year.
Oh, right.
Right.
It gets spread
Yeah.
around everybody.
It gets added into the levy rate. It's available to every taxing district as an option if they
Right.
want it.
All right, that's it, sir?
That's it.
Any questions, comments?
No.
Similar to the open space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you,
be back
Jeff.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Look forward to
It's
it.
like new
Right.
construction.
All right, it is
Thank you.
10:07, and we're going to take a break, and we'll
Because
be,
the end of the
we'll
day-
come back at 10,
Exactly.
well, let's do 10:20. That gives plenty of time for people to get, take care of business. And welcome back. It's 10:20, same cast of characters are here, or players rather, cast of whatever. And we're going to continue on with the agenda where we left off. We're going to go back to towards the top, proclamations and awards.
In your packet, this is La Bonita Bomar, the clerk of the board, and in your packet you have a reappointment for Board of Equalization. That Mr. Ted May, he's an alternate member. He's been a member since 2018, and he would like to be reappointed.
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
Does that mean reappointment as an alternate? Is that how it works?
Yes,
Okay.
reappointment as an alternate.
I'm good with that.
I just don't find it in here. Is it in the boards and commissions?
It's
Oh,
attached.
okay.
It's the first one.
Okay, got it. I thought there was something attached in the packet as well.
Well, there would be, attached in the packet, you should have the email from Ruth Elder
Application.
and the application.
Got it, okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that too. And that's for the boards. And for the advisory board, I'm still looking for someone for the planning commission.
Yes.
I'm working on that. That's an act in progress. And proclamations. We're going to do the heart healthy today.
If I may, so the board agrees on the reappointment as an alternate for Mr. Ted May for the Board of Equalization? Was that a?
I don't know.
No, I'm
I
asking
said
how,
I
what's the
agree.
board's
It was.
direction?
I'm okay with it, is all I said.
I didn't hear,
I don't think I have a problem with that.
okay, so we'll bring an AIS this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Romero. And any other proclamations?
Under proclamations, we have the Board of Health for today, the Heart Health Month. For the month of March, I'm working on the Women's History Month proclamation, and I will be having a draft to you this week, hopefully
Okay.
today or tomorrow.
Right, and we're doing the Heart Healthy Month not as BOH, but we're going to do it as
It's
the
a board of
BoCC.
Yes,
Yeah. Is that all you have, Lana?
that's all today.
Good, okay. That was done. Legislative update.
Yeah, and with you is this one pager in your packet, and I believe that's probably what Commissioner Edwards was requesting last, is just to give you a brief summary
Oh, okay.
of all the bills with a little bit description of what the bill is, as well as what the recommendation is to support it, neutral or not. So let me just walk you through briefly those bills. House Bill 1718. This is related to the funding flexibility for counties. That's the old House Bill 2006 that it was considered last year, and the recommendation is to support that bill.
The recommendation is the Ramiro recommendation?
Yeah, that's Ramiro's, staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Staff's recommendation. And some of those bills you already discussed, and
Right.
some you already took a position on that
Right,
as well.
right.
Which one was that, Romero?
That's, I'm going from the top.
Okay,
It's House Bill
1718.
1718.
Okay.
House Bill 1598 and Senate Bill 5522, that's related to the annexations in the islands. You have been following up on that. That is the bill that includes an interlocal agreement as a result of going through the process of an annexation. That is in support, and this particular bill has moved out of committee on February 14th, which is good. The next bill, however, House Bill 1357 and Senate Bill 5249, that's also related to annexation in islands, and that includes the removal of the referendum. As you may recall, that was sponsored by the city of Lacey. My recommendation at that point was to remain neutral, considering how the House Bill 1598 will move through that process. I'm hearing that perhaps this bill has some problems related to removing the referendum, and I believe they're trying to incorporate some amendments to that bill that includes a new local agreement, which, as you may recall, that was a recommendation early in the process when this bill came to me. So I don't know how this is going to move forward, but it's not as promising as House Bill 1598, which is the one we're supporting. There is a new bill that was introduced, House Bill 2022, and that is related to the fish bitter removal funding. What allows is to act as in a partnership with the state as well as with private property owners to remove fish barriers on private property. And this is a good bill, I believe. And this is somewhat of the highway model that you see, so where property owners can, participate in removal fish barriers on some of the streams. And I believe through the conversations as to how the board has supported $2 million a year to remove some of the fish barriers, the larger impact will be to remove the barriers downstream as well as upstream of the efforts that we have. And I believe this bill does that. But if you have anything, commissioners, that you don't sound good in terms of my recommendation, please state that is not, like support, neutral, or oppose. House Bill 5190. This gives you an option of having implemented a 0.1% sales tax. It will be a councilmatic, and this is related to affordable housing. I believe you supported that in the past. A new bill that was introduced is the House Bill 1591. That's the rights of persons experiencing homelessness. My recommendation is to remain neutral on this. And what this bill is going to do, or proposed to do, is it prevents any local agency and any state agency to remove homeless individuals from their facilities. So if a homeless person comes to the county courthouse, we will not be able to remove them out of the courthouse. That's what this bill does.
Why would we be in favor of that?
I
know you got neutral.
Neutral, because of the issues that you're dealing in addressing homelessness and as a whole. That's my recommendation. And the reason that I'm recommending neutral, because I believe, based on the conversation, this bill is going to have a courtesy hearing, but perhaps it's not going to move it forward. There's no support.
The way it's worded, does it say you cannot remove the individual unless there is no beds available or shelter available, like the
Court case.
The court case, Supreme Court
But I think
case?
it's more to it. When I was reading the bill over the weekend, includes when an individual, when the county or any local jurisdiction approach those individuals to ask them to move, that may be considered harassment. And that the harassment aspect is what prevents any jurisdiction to doing anything under this bill.
If I understood the conversation from WASAC, they said there could not even be police intervention, or going to the person and offering them services could be perceived as harassment. I mean, it seems to be extreme.
Then why, my question is why would, I'll get to you, I'm sure you have some questions, but why would we not just oppose it?
Yeah,
then?
well, I'm curious why not oppose it as
well,
well.
I'm not neutral, but I'm not ambivalent about what was said.
That's my recommendation. Your decision is on your hands.
Can I clarify, when we're saying, I mean, you've got the support, neutral, oppose, and we can disagree with that.
Absolutely.
But what's the consequence? Nobody's asking us for our opinion unless we, right? Unless we take affirmative action to contact the legislature or write a letter.
No, what I do is I contact Deborah Manguilla.
Okay.
And when a hearing comes up related to this bill, she will sign in opposition.
Okay,
Or
so
she
there is a
will,
consequence.
she will sign on support, or she doesn't sign it, meaning neutral.
Okay, understood.
So I have to read that one. But do you have more?
No more questions on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I do. I don't want to be enabling. I am adamantly opposed to enabling legislation that allows people to overreach, I guess, and get away with something they shouldn't get away with. So I'm, from your description, I'm opposed to that. I don't mind saying so.
I'm opposed to being opposed to it until I read it. I want to read it, then I'll probably, I mean, I will make a decision then.
That's where I'm at. Based on what I know right now, which is very little, I support the neutral recommendation.
Okay, so and perhaps this may be a moot point, because by this Friday,
Yeah.
you know, when the policy cutoff is, then we'll know what bills are surfacing.
Right.
And that's what, at this point, neutral is not giving Deborah Mangia any direction, A or nay. on this.
Okay, all right.
But
Do you
I
have already a
understand
copy made or no?
What?
Do you already have a copy made of that bill? If not, I'll just get it from the
No,
internet.
I can give you the link as to where you can get into.
Kelly has that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
House Bill.
Oh, wait, do you have more on that one, Gary?
Well, I don't know if it's exactly on that one or not. On House Bill 1797, I don't see it on your list. And that kind of moves us towards more affordable housing if we're talking about trying to make arrangements for folks. And that has to do with the accessory dwelling units, some kind of legislation. But I don't see it on your list, but I'm wondering if it doesn't tie in with this.
Yeah, it's down on the list is the House Bill 1357, Senate Bill 1539, and Senate Bill 1518, 5812. And that addresses the accessory dwelling units outside the UGA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're going
All right.
to talk about that later.
You're one step ahead of me,
Okay,
Commissioner.
good enough.
A couple.
Okay.
Ready.
Wait.
So the next bill is House Bill 1497. That's foundational public health. And as you may know, in order to meet all the demands of the obligations related to this bill, this close to $1 billion. The request to include, and the budget was $1 million, at least a piece of it, and the governor included only $25 million, I believe. And the recommendations to support this bill, as this is part of your the county's legislative agenda. House Bill 1771 and Senate Bill 5683. That's Welcome Washington Baby Act. That's related to the nurse-family partnership. And it's interesting because last night on King 5 News, Kathy Sherman was featured as part of providing the nurse-family partnership services. It was a great piece by King 5 News. And the backdrop behind this report is related to this bill, as to how this bill can support that with additional funding. So.
Very nice.
So let me know if you disagree on my recommendation as we move forward.
I don't think you're going to get a disagreement.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and we're not shy. We will tell you whether we
House
agree.
Bill 1074 and Senate Bill 5057 raises the age to 21 to purchase tobacco and vaping products, and the recommendation is to support that.
Any questions? Okay.
And not in your, I'll go back and what is not in your sheet. Senate Supplement House Bill 1087. That's a trust fund for health care for employees. That is part of the WASAC. And that is a good bill, what allows us to create a trust fund after employees are retired from local government and the state government. Senate Bill 5163 and House Bill 1135, that's related to the wrongful death. WASAC opposes that. And as WASAC was stating, that's a very difficult bill that perhaps is going to pass. And what this bill does is for those individuals who, for family members, can probably file litigation against local governments for any wrongful death. And this is predicated to some of the accidents that occurred on, I believe, on the freeway, where an entire family was affected by this accident when, I believe, a barrier, concrete barrier, dropped on this truck and killed an entire family. The parents of those individuals couldn't sue the county or the state in this case, because the limitations are on the wrongful dead as such. So as this WASAG was stating, it is very difficult to oppose this bill entirely because the stories behind that and all those testimonies are heart-wrenching. And, but I believe there is a strong support for this bill that perhaps maybe have some legs will not next week. The effects to the counties is on the risk pool. Then our exposure will be larger, and that's the only reason why the suggestion is to oppose this bill.
May I ask you a question of the commissioner here? With your legal hat, does that, are you aware of this, or have you read this, this bill?
I haven't. And I didn't do any kind of work in that area in Washington, so I don't know how limited the statute is here.
Severance liability.
For exposure liability, you know, so you're always striking a balance.
Yeah. But what you said, if I understood it right, it was a family, one family, or there were different families in the car?
No, it was a mom and dad and an infant.
Okay, and they're
And
killed.
and the parents couldn't claim.
And the parents
severance.
couldn't claim wrongful death. I thought anybody can sue anybody for any reason. You don't have the right to win, but you have the right to sue.
Well, there's been tort reform over the years that have led to limitations, statutes that limit certain types of claims. And this is, in going back in the old days, you're right. But obviously at some point, Washington enacted a statute that said we're going to limit claims against local government by family members in wrongful deaths context. I'm not familiar with how that evolved and whether that's the right balance or not.
Well, I can see that's a highly emotionally charged bill. Good gravy. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay.
So House Bill, House Bill 1441, House Bill 1680, House Bill 1691, all related to local government infrastructure funding. It does allow for changes some issuance on bonds and loans for the public contracts. And also what it does is allows for 1%, this is the 1680, 1% of the biennial capital budget appropriation for public works trust fund. And that is good because the trust fund has been rated in the past. And in the trust fund, what it does is allows to give low interest loans to jurisdictions to do public works. And in the past legislation, that fund was rated, as that's my words, by the legislature. Also, 1680 ends the deposit of the 4.1% of the real estate excise tax rate into the education legacy trust account. So right now, part of the REIT funds the education requirement, and this bill stops that in 2020. House Bill 1353, Senate Bill 5739, and Senate Bill 5812, that's affordable housing homelessness. That's the Commissioner Edwards was stating. And there's one of them, the 1353, deals with accessory dwelling units outside the UGA, and this particular bill allows to do that. So we talked about House Bill 1591, House Bill 1386, and Senate Bill 5571.
Wait, can you go back up?
Yep.
Because we have two in a row that are affordable housing homeless. We
I
support
already
one.
touched base on, above is the House
Okay.
Bill 1591.
All right.
I just had to repeat it twice in here. I removed that.
Oh, I see it up top. Got it.
Yeah. House Bill 1386, Senate Bill 5571, that's related to military benefit zone. That is a bill sponsored by the city of Lakewood. We had a brief discussion on this, and the board supported. What it does is it recognizes the JBLM as an economic engine in the region, and also allows for us, if that's recognizable, to allow us access federal grants to infrastructure improvements. And that is a good bill. However, House Bill 1628 has come up again, and that is the imposing development restrictions around military installations. And as you may recall, we discussed this bill, similar bill last year, would put a buffer around military installations as to why local governments could not have an option how to govern land use within those regulations without having approval by the Department of Defense, DOE. So the board opposed this bill last year. I recommend opposing strongly this year again.
I do have a question on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you know, on the language on that, if they had something in there that allowed the jurisdiction to be compensated for something that the military did not want to happen in that area, I think I would be in favor of that.
That's not
That's
included.
not in there.
No.
Okay. And can we request that be added in there? Can you add it in? You're the king.
Oh,
I think if the recommendation by the board is to provide amendments to this bill, that will come across that we're in support of the bill.
Okay, good enough.
House Bill 1667 and Senate Bill 5667, that's related to public records reporting. As you may recall, back when the legislation last year gave the local jurisdictions an option to charge 10 cents per every gigabyte that we submit as a result of the public records request. Also, that bill included a very complicated reporting requirements that we went through last year in reporting how many public records we received, and it was very comprehensive reporting that we did, and the public records unit here in the county did an excellent job on that. This bill allows us to soften that reporting requirement quite a bit. So my recommendation is to support this bill. Senate Bill 5766 and House Bill 1743, prevailing wages. At first, when I came across this bill, I was extremely concerned, and I talked to Deborah Manguia. And what this bill actually does is fixes prevailing wages, because last year it was imposed that all the affordable housing, low-income housing, or any residential housing construction needed to include prevailing wages. What prevailing wages does is considered as a public works. It has to be a certain salary per hour that each of those individuals have to pay. So through this past year, apparently the housing industry and the affordable housing has cried foul because increases the cost of building affordable housing, which that's not the intent. So what this bill really does is fixes that and clarifies the residential housing, shelter construction, homeless shelter construction are not required to follow prevailing wages. So this is a good bill. My first reaction last week was when I was reading that, but through the conversation with Deborah, I think this is a good bill to support.
Does this bill have support from any
Yes, and has support
labor groups?
from all.
Carpenters?
Yes, I believe so.
Et cetera?
Yeah, I believe so, because it really was not the intent to put prevailing wages on those the affordable housing.
that industry. Okay.
And what is not in your list, I just got this this request this morning from Mark Story. There's House Bill 1638. This is related to promoting immunity against vaccine doses, I believe, and this related to the measles issue that we have going on right now. And again, Art is requesting the board to support this, but I don't know if Shelley had the opportunity to look at this. You want to come in? So I have not got the chance to read this
Okay.
bill. I just received this morning.
Yes, this bill is regarding Washington State is one of, I can't remember how many states, but a few states that still have a personal exemption allowance for certain vaccines. So this bill proposes for measles specifically, due to the highly contagious nature of that disease in our current state of emergency declared by the governor, to eliminate that exemption.
I assume you support this?
I support
Yeah, I
that,
support that.
yes.
So I support, yeah.
Okay. We got them, no?
You brought up a bill a couple meetings ago about
Thanks, Shelley.
a blank check to use pesticides in aquaculture. And,
Yeah, that has not moved.
okay, we don't have to worry about that.
Is that it for the ledge update?
That's what I have for you, Commissioner Spinell.
All right.
And,
then,
and again, next week, after the cutoff, then we'll start narrowing down as to what bills are moving forward.
thank you. Let's go to the PIO check-in.
Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to take this time today to actually talk about the Thurston Community or Thurston County Connection television show that you guys all work on through Thurston Community Media. We do this every year, meet with you, talk to you about how you would like to continue moving forward with that. Thurston County gets 1,700 hours from Thurston Community Media through our contract, and each year we use around 450 hours for the monthly Commissioner Thurston County Connection show. In the past 2 or 3 years, we've done one commissioner every third month to film a show. It's a really great platform for you to get issues out that you would like to talk about, but we also think that we could probably format it a little bit differently to make it a little bit more viewer friendly. So we filmed 10 episodes last year, and each one ranged from 20 minutes to 50 minutes. Most of them were more than 30 minutes long. That resulted in 433 views on YouTube for all those 10 episodes combined. 2 of those episodes made up more than half of the views, and those were fewer than 30 minutes long. So what we're recommending is that this year we continue with the every third month, if that's what you would like to do, and look at really storyboarding them a little bit better for them to be less than 30 minutes long. Hopefully 15 to 20 minutes long. If there is a certain topic that requires more attention, we could possibly do a series, so you could record 45 minutes worth and make it into 3 15-minute episodes or something like that to make it a little bit more digestible for people to watch, because watching it for 50 minutes is a lot. So if you are in occurrence with that, if that's what you would like to do, we can move forward with that platform. What do you think?
Is that, could that include some staff folks instead of just the commissioners? Because I think staff have a lot of important information that they can get out to the public during that period.
You can format it how you want to. This platform specifically is for you to use it as a way for you to talk about issues that you would like to get out. We are working with departments and offices to use the TC Media Hours a little bit more,
Okay.
and develop shows that are specifically about a single topic. Doesn't include the commissioners. It would be more of a special show that we could put out there. So we are continuing to do that, but this one is specifically for the commissioners to talk with people.
Okay, I'm good.
I
Are
agree
you
with
in favor of that?
approach, yeah, I think
Okay.
it makes sense.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was looking for, something 15-minute shot,
Perfect.
done,
Perfect.
done and dusted.
Okay.
That 45 minutes to 50 minutes to an hour is nobody sits down and watches that, even though it's commercial free.
Yeah.
No one watches that.
And we don't get viewership numbers from Thurston Community Media, so I don't even know how many people view it through the television show. All we have to say who the viewers are is through our YouTube. So based on that, the higher viewed videos are the fewer minute videos. So,
So it gets us more bang for our buck.
yes.
With the viewers, which is the intent, get the message out, get people watching it, but it's easier on staff, it's easier on TCM staff. So I like it very much.
Okay. So you would like to move forward with continuing once every third month, trying to get them 15, 20-minute max unless we do a series?
I say let's do that for 2019.
For
see if we can
2019.
get, you know,
Perfect.
viewership up.
Okay, and then we'll come back in January of 2020 to talk about it again. Commissioner Menser actually is already going to be filming this Friday. He's doing the Nisqually Watershed Management Plan. So he's going to be doing his episode. It's going to be airing in March. We'll work with the assistants to set up the schedule and let you guys know what months you'll be taping in.
You know, we're hip waders.
I don't think so. We're going to the Nisqually.
The Reach?
Billy,
Wildlife.
the Billy Frank Jr.
Nice, okay.
Could I go back to the legislative update? I
No.
forgot to mention your schedule for
No.
this week.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Menser has an appointment on Thursday, the 21st, with Representative Orchid, 9 in the morning. And you will be meeting Deborah Manguia, 8:45 at the Rotunda. Commissioner Edwards on Thursday, the 21st, has 3 appointments, one with Representative Barkis at 1:15 in the afternoon, followed by Representative Braun at 2 in the afternoon, and then meeting with Representative McEwen at 2:30. You will be meeting Deborah Manguia at 1 at the Rotunda. And on Friday, the 22nd, Commissioner Menser has a meeting with Representative Dolan at 1:30, and you will meet Deborah Manguia at 11:15 at the Sundial.
Okay, hold on. I thought it was 11:30.
It's 11:30, but you will meet Deborah
Okay,
at
you said
11:15.
1:30.
I'm sorry,
You scared me.
11:30. Did I say 1:30?
Scared these guys because that's where I'm supposed
No,
to be taping.
11:30, 11:30, sorry.
Our staff has that, right?
At the sundial.
Yeah, I'll touch base with your assistants. And again,
Maybe cloudy,
this
you'll have
is,
trouble finding it.
this to have the opportunity to have a conversation with representatives to highlight the importance of restoring the court impact fees, and also to refund the aggravated murder cases that we have been facing in the past. But again, if you were to emphasize what will be the item most importantly for the county, will be restoring the impact fees, the court impact fees. That really is a benefit to the county.
Thank you. I'll go back to PIO. You done? Do you have anything, Brian? Okay. Perfect. Now, let's get through the rest of these things here. Thurston County Medical Reserve Corps. Well, hello, good morning.
Good morning. My name's Jennifer Dixon. I think most of you, but not everybody.
Will you get that mic right in front of you there, Jennifer? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So I work with our Thurston County Public Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Department, and part of what I do is coordinate our Thurston County Medical Reserve Corps. And I think you each have a packet, so our annual report from 2018. If you don't, I brought copies. If
It's
you
right here.
So I was just going to give you an update of what the group did over 2018. They're a really great group. They do a lot of work within the community and even beyond, helping others outside of our Thurston County community as well. So 2018, we had 854 volunteer hours. So they donated 854 hours of their time, which adds up to over a $41,000 economic value put into our community. We provided 581 vaccinations to children mostly children under the age of 18. We did some flu clinics that would include adults as well. The majority was children though. We had 831 community members served through those vaccination clinics, but as well as our treatment, triage, first aid stations that we had throughout the year.
And currently we have about 90 active volunteers. So it's a combination of medical and non-medical personnel, probably about 60% medical, 40% non-medical. And then the disease prevention, so immunizations that we gave, we continually have increased every year the clinics that we have, but also the amount of immunizations that are given. You can see in 2016 we had 252 total, 2017 418 total, and then last year there were 581 vaccinations given, so it's a constant increase. And when we do those vaccination clinics, we use the Vaccine for Children program. So we get the vaccine at no cost and we don't charge any fees because it's a volunteer group that's doing them. So we're able to provide those vaccinations at no cost to the people receiving them. And then we had a unique opportunity this year, a deployment opportunity in partnership with the Red Cross. So we actually had 3 of our Thurston County Medical Reserve Corps go to help with Hurricane Florence relief efforts over on the East Coast. So they went out for a full 9 days and were able to provide help within the shelter, so medical care within the shelters while they were there. So it was a different opportunity, hasn't came up before, but with all the hurricanes last year, Red Cross was having a hard time filling those spots. So they reached out, and nationally there were different MRC units that sent people to help.
Jennifer, I have a question, if you don't mind. I see here you did 85 influenza vaccinations for tribal members.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical, the typical number, or is it going up or down, or?
So that clinic was specific. We were asked by Nisqually tribe to come and help them with their clinic for their tribal members. So I am not sure what they did the year previously because we didn't help them with it that year. But they wanted to try something differently to increase the number, and so they asked us to come and assist.
Oh, very
So we
nice.
did that
Okay, thank you.
specific with them. And then we have every year trainings. So our MRC are trained in CPR first aid, psychological first aid. We hold those trainings multiple times a year. And then this past year, 2018, we also added Stop the Bleed training. So we had that quite a few times. So we try to throw in some other things to give them some additional training whenever we can. And then our community partnerships, every time we do an event, we are working with our community partners. And that's one of our most important things that we focus on, because in the event of an emergency, those partnerships and those people that we know and are able to connect with are going to be the most important. So that's kind of a recap of 2018 and the things that our volunteer group did. So far 2019, we have a lot of the same stuff. We do a lot of the same events every year. But we've also helped in Clark County with their measles response. So I've had multiple volunteers go down for 5-day deployments to help them with contact and case investigations. We've already done that this year.
So when is the, you have a yearly event, this recognition to the volunteers?
Yeah, we do an annual volunteer
When is that?
recognition.
And I think that's an opportunity for the commissioners to, really express their appreciation to all the volunteers.
Yeah, I always send out an invite, so I'll send that out again. I don't have the date set for this year. Normally it's April, May kind of time frame. And we just kind of get together, have some food, just a volunteer recognition event. Last year we put together packages, care packages that we later took downtown and did some outreach. So we try to change it up, do something different every year.
Okay.
So when someone goes down to Clark County or across the country, are those retired people? How does that work out for them individually?
Yeah, I put the ask out there, and if they are able to fill whatever the need is, then they let me know. A lot of times it is some of our retired volunteers, but they still have their license active. Other times it's people who maybe only work part-time. It just depends on their personal situation. Yeah, but a lot of times they're retired volunteers that go on the longer deployments.
What is Stop the Bleed?
The Stop the Bleed training is something that has been put out. I know UW-Tacoma and Harborview kind of partnered together to really get it out into the Washington communities. And we had Tacoma Trauma Trust come down and teach it. And it's about stopping traumatic bleeding, because people in accidents, traumatic accidents, that's typically you only have a few minutes if you're bleeding out. So stopping that bleeding as soon as possible. So kind of like CPR first aid, but on the traumatic bleeding side.
Okay.
Is that meant to cover if they just happen to come upon an accident, or is it for disaster training?
No, that one's for anybody. I mean, we kind of encourage every person, just like CPR first aid, for every person in the public in the community to have that training. That's something that we kind of promote that everybody should do and should know, because you never know when you may come across something.
When you do that, do you also kind of bring them up to speed on the Good Samaritan Act?
I have not. That might be something good to bring up, because if they came across something on their own, it wouldn't be under MRC. When we work
Right.
under MRC, we have a mission number, so we have liability.
Right, but I
coverage,
mean,
that kind
coming
of thing.
across an accident
But yeah,
or something,
it's just
it
on
might
your
help
own.
them make that decision to help.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the trainers talk about it. I've had different trainers for different classes, and some of them touch on it, but not all of them. So that's a good thing to bring up.
I'd like to point out that Thurston County's former health officer, Dr. Diana Yu, is featured on page 4
Yeah, she is.
as a volunteer for the Reserve Corps, and was actually awarded Volunteer of the Year in recognition of her outstanding service to the MRC. She's a lovely lady, and it's a good picture of her with the other
Yeah.
volunteers down at the Little Red Schoolhouse in Rochester. It's beautiful. Good job. Jennifer, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you do. Extension of time, subdivision approval.
Yes, this is a proposal before you, and you have a memo. Let me, it describes this. And the gist of this particular proposal, and Josh and his staff will come and give you additional information, is this related to subdivision approval. And the current code, what allows is when a particular approval, for some reason, financially they cannot move forward with their particular development. And I think we saw that in 2008, 2000, and the law, they have to start all over again, which, you know, if, in any particular development, they need to secure loans and everything else, and sometimes that necessarily materializes at the time allowed because the economy has an impact on that. This is a proposal for you to consider. They may have authorized additional extensions to those particular proposals. And again, I will ask Josh and Jeremy to come and give you the details as to what this particular matters. But that's really in just what it is.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hello.
Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, also known as CPED. I'd like to introduce to my left Jeremy Davis, our brand new Operations Manager for CPED, starting today.
Yay.
Thank you, Jeremy. So we're in this kind of transitional period. Jeremy's been highly engaged in our development code docket and building and other issues in the community planning group. And so you're going to see Jeremy kind of work on these issues, but also bring more consistency to the different items that we're working on in CPED. This one in particular, as is the mission of our organization, is to find ways to better serve the citizens and customers of Thurston County. And it was brought to our attention that the extension of time can sometimes create a burden on citizens when there is a difficult time in financial impact, as we saw in 2008, as County Manager Chavez referenced. So this is the request of direction from the board, is to get information from the public, to get our staff started on receiving written public comment on this concept of extending the time, reducing the burden to the citizens, and potentially creating this as an administrative path forward and not having to go to the hearings examiner. I'll have Jeremy Davis provide some more detail, but again, this is back to that initial concept that CPED wants to try and increase our service to the citizens of Thurston County. And this is one of those ways that we think could potentially be possible. But to follow the public process, we need to begin the public comment period as soon as possible with your direction.
All right, go ahead.
I'm good. I'm liking it. There you go.
How about if perhaps Jeremy may give you additional details as to what that is?
Please.
All right, so good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy
Good
Davis,
morning.
Operations Manager for CPED as of today. So the specific request today is just for the board to authorize staff to move forward with a 20-day written public comment period, which is a requirement of our overall county docketing process we have for comprehensive plan amendments and development code amendments. That written comment period is something that we do for all, usually with the docketing process. However, when specific items come up, we can come back to the board and ask you to go ahead and let us proceed with that. Once we do that 20-day written public comment period, we actually have a briefing scheduled with you on March 20th to talk about all of the high priority development code docket items, as well as this one, if you authorize us to move forward with that written comment period. So the specific ask is just let us move forward with that initial written public comment period. You're not making any decisions today on the actual amendment, the content of the amendment, or anything like that. That comes much further down the road. That being said, currently our preliminary plats are effective for 5 years, and they may be extended by 1 year by the department subject to certain findings and conditions that are outlined in the memo that was given to you. A hearing examiner approval is required if any of the above findings cannot be made for those, any of those conditions can't be made or met. And then right now, preliminary plats with more than 200 lots, and where 1/2 of those preliminary plats have gone through the final platting process, may be granted up to 5 1-year extensions for a total of 10 years, and that's administratively again. And then the planned rural residential developments, which we really don't see anymore, at least that's my understanding, and those are cluster developments. Those can be granted a 10-year provisional approval process from the hearing examiner. And so the proposed process would make it purely an administrative process and then allow us to grant up to 3 1-year extensions instead of 1, and then do up to 5 2-year extensions for the larger subdivisions. And again, back in 2009, as Ramiro referenced, state law was actually changed to allow those subdivisions that were already vested at that time to have a 10-year vesting instead of the standard 5-year, if I remember correctly. So the state legislature did already do that once. This allows us to do that administratively. So should we come into another economic downturn, it does allow us to react quicker for our citizens who do have those vested subdivisions. It's a very expensive proposition to bring those forward. But again, today we're just asking you to ask us to solicit written public comments from the public, which will return to you, and then you'll make a formal decision on adding it to the docket or not.
I have a lot of questions, but since today's issue is very limited in terms of the public comment, I'd certainly like to hear that comment, and I'll follow up with you guys at a later point with some of the specific questions I have about the hearing examiner process, et cetera.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the question I have is, at first blush, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense, but I want to know what the controversy is. Mm-hmm. What's the other side going to say why not to do it?
Well,
so the public comment, we'll get that, but I want to hear from you. What's the downside?
Yeah, we look forward to hearing the public comment on these and hearing back from the public and the concerns on whether the county should do this or shouldn't do that. There, of course, are going to be pros and cons that will be presented to both the Planning Commission and the board as we move through the public process if you choose to docket it.
Okay.
Some of those pros and cons will likely come up in the docket comment period. They usually do, at least.
All right.
And we'll be sending out a request for comments to all the applicable folks, environmental and development.
So this is for the hearing.
It's just to allow the 20-day public comment.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
You all right? Okay.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and congratulations, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Shoreline Management, the SMP.
Yeah, this particular matter is just to keep you up to date as to the progress of the shoreline management plan. And the staff is here, Josh, Brad, and Cindy Wilson. And considering that this is a very complex issue, it is just to keep you up to date. Obviously, there's going to be many opportunities for you to get additional information, but it's really an intent just to keep you abreast of some of the progress that we have gone through.
Yes, thank you. Again, in an effort to ensure that all public input is received on multiple issues, we want to take the look at the Shoreline Master Program. We received direction from the board in 2018 to specifically do 2 things, reduce buffers where possible and increase flexibility for citizens in the Shoreline Master Program. Brad Murphy has received over 900 comments from the public on these different items, and we're working to take the comments that work within the document that is drafted and create a strike-through version that the Planning Commission can review. The Planning Commission will receive that strike-through version of the document on the 22nd, which is this Friday, and then receive a formal presentation to the Planning Commission from Brad Murphy on March 6th. And then at that point, they'll go through that strike-through version of the Shoreline Master Program, they'll also have the 900 comments, and we are still receiving comments. Comments can be provided at any time. That comment period is not over, it's ongoing. So our staff is kind of doing two things at the same time. We're working to present the information to the Planning Commission that we've received while we're still collecting the information from the public, and then receive input from the Planning Commission on what they would like to have included in the Shoreline Master Program. So a lot of kind of moving parts with this really complicated document, but the goal here is to get everything together into one recommended document for the Planning Commission, present it to the Board of County Commissioners, and then from there it goes to Ecology for its final approval. This is a long and arduous process, but as we're working forward, we look to follow the process, the public process as it's stated. And so it feels like it's stretched at many periods, but it requires this level of input for this kind of document. If there's more questions, I've got Brad here to answer the details.
I saw some graphs that were sort of compared a couple different counties. So was it produced by, in terms of what the major changes are, and then how those would compare to other? Was it like a one pager? It was just it was a series of colored kind of graph.
Yeah.
So was that produced by you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the open house that we had.
Yeah, and I'm super, I love that kind of comparison to other jurisdictions analysis in general, but the ones that were presented was Lewis, Mason, and Kitsap, which I had to kind of scratch my head as to why those were the benchmarks for what we would be comparing ourselves to. I mean, Lewis County doesn't even have marine shoreline.
Right, so it was based on geographically, they're close. We try to get some counties that did have marine. A lot of the actual document itself was based on Kitsap. They were a approved SMP at the time when I wrote the document. So it.
Is it easy to add Whatcom, Skagit, Pierce County to that? I mean, I don't want to make a ton of work for you guys, but if that's easy to kind of plug in, I think it would give a better range of comparison. Appreciate that.
And we have all those numbers and benchmarks. It's just in terms of how do you create a visual that's impactful and quick and understood. So we have the geographies that are close, Lewis and Mason, and then we have a location that's similar with its different marine with Kitsap. That was the logic there. But we can definitely add more visuals and Whatcom and others as well.
Okay, I appreciate it. And I'm obviously I'm the new commissioner in this process. I know it's been going since 2007, I think, an attempt to update this plan. So I know that there's a ton of history. I've done my best to try to kind of track things. What I saw in the proposed changes, some really good pieces I thought were really made sense in terms of flexibility in terms of doing renovations on the similar footprint and being able to expand like landward. All that stuff made a lot of sense to me. Buffer reductions don't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not hearing a lot of good news about the health of Puget Sound, and it's going to be a heavy lift to convince me that that's good policy. So just laying that out there.
Yeah, staff will continue to work at the direction of the board.
And I'm absolutely open to hearing what the justifications are, but I'm just saying that coming in, that seems concerning to me.
Acknowledged.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm very encouraged to hear this, and the buffer issues do make sense to me because it allows people some flexibility. The one issue that I hear most about on shoreline management is the word shall versus something else that does not give any flexibility. And Commissioner Menser mentioned when you make an addition or some kind of an upgrade to your property on the same footprint or not, it seems like so many of those are overly restrictive when you compare them maybe to the neighboring property. And so even some of the setback issues where you split the difference, so to speak, and some flexibility. So that's what I keep hearing from citizens. And do you feel we're addressing those issues?
That's exactly what the process with the planning commission is for. If they want to raise that as one of the issues, the wording choices, that's information that we'll receive and consider.
Are you saying you have not heard that?
We've heard lots of different requests on shall versus may and non-conforming versus other ways. So what we're doing is presenting all of that to the planning commission, letting them react, and then we'll bring that reaction back to this.
Okay.
So there's a few steps still yet to be taken by the board. As stated, it's just an update. The planning commission will hear all the different public testimony they have received, and that has been put into the actual document. And the planning commission will make a formal recommendation to the board, whether it's as presented, as modified, however that means. And then the staff will come back and walk you through what the recommendations from the planning commission is. And at that point is when you need to hold your own public hearing before you take any particular final action as a board. So there is a couple of steps that need to be taken. This again, just an update as to the steps that we're planning to take. The specifics will be many conversations among yourselves and with staff as to the specifics of the document.
And while I've got Brad and Cindy here, I'd just like to say thank you for their hard work on this really complicated issue. So thank you guys.
900 and some comment just going through them.
And counting.
Well, that's the question I have, Brad, is those 900 and some odd comments, are they individual separate or they're duplicates?
There's lots of duplicates. But you gotta read every one.
Exactly. Some could be potentially duplicates. A lot of them are like red lines in the document. So multiple different documents with red line versions that I've been having to go through. Some material has been submitted, reports, a book was submitted. So it's going back and reviewing a lot of different things and a lot of research, having to look at citations and things like that. So it is a lot to go through.
And I'm not looking for a percentage break or breakdown, but they're on both sides of the issue.
All sides.
All sides. Not both sides, all sides. Okay, thank you.
You will find
That's
this
all I have.
process, there is going to be a lot of interest by the public, and you will hear many different perspectives before you consider taking a final action.
Boy, sally forth.
Yeah, I've been to at least 3 of the public meetings that Brad has presided over and done an excellent job of navigating a lot of enthusiastic comments from the public.
Enthusiastic.
So,
I have to use that one, enthusiastic.
Great, thank you.
And 900 is kind of hard to capture because 900 could be, like Brad said, a single strike through, or it could be a book.
Yeah.
So when we say 900 comments received, those are 900 individual comments of varying sizes and breadth. So it's a big deal.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, thank you. City of Lacey annexation.
Yeah, this
And
is
again, we're not opposed to annexation.
This is a follow-up to the annexation on the intersection of the Stillicum Road and Marvin Road. So you may recall, and attached to your packet is the 3 graphs. One is the initial request by the city. The option 2 was a compromise, and option 3 was in which the majority of the board agreed to invoke jurisdiction based on, which is depending on trying to normalize the area in which the city of Lacey planning to annex this portion of the county. I'd just like to remind the public that invoking jurisdiction on choosing option number 3 was a 2-to-1 vote. The remaining commissioner was not opposed to that annexation, but perhaps it was just going with a different option. It was the vote 2-to-1 was on the options in which the board invoked jurisdiction. And the intent of invoking jurisdiction is really to start having a conversation with the city of Lacey as to how we can get to the point before the boundary review board holds a public hearing. And when the boundary review board is a public hearing, then the process needs to follow through to the point of the boundary review board making a determination on what that is. So at this point, staff is going to report to you the outreach they have made to the city of Lacey, and perhaps a way as to how we can start moving forward on this particular annexation.
Thank you. As directed by the Board of County Commissioners and the 3 options that County Manager Chavez just presented, we did begin that conversation with my counterpart at the City of Lacey, Rick Walk, and as directed by the board, presented option 3 as our starting place, with the understanding that we could negotiate down to option 2, which was staff recommendation. Those conversations have taken place. They were positive and productive with Rick and the city. Rick took those conversations and our willingness to discuss the different options back to the city council, and we've received word that they are amenable to going forward on option 2. So we have details to still work out in that process, but the direction from the board that we need to receive is about writing our letter to the Boundary Review Board, adjusting our initial invocation of annexation to option 2. And Jeremy can talk more about the detail on the process, but I just wanted to relay that the direction that we received from the board, we gave and enacted with the City of Lacey. They took that information back to their council, and we have, I think, a good and positive path forward. So that's that.
Wasn't there that's good news, and was there like presenting a settlement, in a legal case, you'd present a settlement to the judge? I know Travis was here when we initially talked about this, and he said that it works a little differently with the Boundary Review Board in terms of how can we get the Boundary Review Board to basically bless this sort of agreement, or are we, how tight are our hands about that?
So at this point in time, the Boundary Review Board, in order to adjust the existing boundaries that Lacey put in their initial notice of intention, must hold a public hearing on it and make a decision on it.
Right.
As it is right now, the way their process, at least I understand it, will unfold, as I attended the last meeting, is they'll have a first public hearing on the legality of the annexation itself and our request. The second public hearing would take place in the neighborhood. At this point in time, it's in Nisqually Middle School. And then after that second public hearing is when they'll make a final decision on the final boundary. So we can't at this point, like you said, submit any sort of settlement negotiation with them and say, hey, we've decided on this, can you agree with it? They do have to hold a public hearing, and that's what's in state law.
And to talk a little more plainly, when we come together, the City of Lacey and Thurston County, and have our perspective aligned, it will carry a lot of weight.
Got it.
Anything?
No.
Beautifully done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Removal of illegal
So-
encampments on the Chehalis Western Trail.
Sorry, just so you guys see what's happening next. So you'll have a letter that will go to Ramiro, and then that'll be passed around for your signature for the Boundary Review Board. That's the
Great,
next steps.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Amending the booking jurisdiction to using option 2.
Okay, perfect. We'll get that next week? No,
This week,
not
this
next week, sometime.
Hopefully,
Around next week.
hopefully this week.
This week.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Okay,
because next week is
we're gone.
gone.
Thank you. Trail.
You guys might leave me in charge. I'll really have them roofed up to get back.
You're not going?
I've been there. I've got a certificate too.
All right.
So attached to your packet, there is a map on the second page where is highlighted a county-owned property adjacent to the Chehalis Western Trail, where we have found a illegal camping. And well, I mean, we can make the assumption that perhaps are homeless related to who are occupying this property. This has been a long-standing issue. The nearby property owners are upset, obviously, as to the presence of that related to garbage, sanitation, and so on and so forth, as you may conclude related to those activities. In past practice, staff has gone through the process in securing a quote as to how much it will cost to clean this in a particular what we consider to be illegal camping activities. On the first page, that's what you have before you. It will be a consultant contractor. It will cost us just about $700 plus sales taxes to go ahead and clean this encampment. What has changed from the previous approach the county has taken is the federal lawsuit. It was Martin versus BoCC. That came out in September, I believe, of 2018. And that is really related to homeless encampments and public property. And that is the same restriction as the city of Olympia is working through that at this point. The gist of that, the lawsuit, as I believe, is that any public agency cannot displace homeless individuals from public property if we don't give an option as to where they need to go. I believe in this case is the same. I don't think we have the option to give them an option as to where they need to go, but I believe we have the obligation to clean the site.
Could you restate, just go back about 4 sentences and say that all over again, please?
Yes, in this particular federal court ruling,
right, I know that.
Doesn't allow any public agency to displace homeless individuals that are using county property if we do not give them an option as to where they need to go to.
Okay.
So in this particular case, we don't have that option as a county.
Why not? I guess.
We don't have a mitigation site.
Well, I would say that we maybe do. We have places like Salvation Army. We have other public places that if they weren't on this property, they could go to another property that are within Thurston County. They might be in a municipality, but they're still within the jurisdiction of Thurston County. So I'm questioning whether or not that's a true statement.
So that's something that we need to go through your legal counsel to determine what really the consequence of this. I'm just highlighting what has changed since past approaches that we have taken when we have experienced this type of illegal camping in county property.
This is not within the city of Olympia?
No, it's not.
It's, okay, super close, but not quite.
It's not.
And again, I have to read that opinion, but it's jurisdiction by jurisdiction, meaning we have to have an option within.
I don't think
because we're in Thurston County, we include Olympia.
Yeah, I don't think that's by jurisdiction. I believe as long as we provide an option as to where they could go to, that might be the case. But also, if we make this, and this is just me speaking, if we were to give them an option to go downtown Olympia to use their mitigation site, I don't know if that would be fair for the city of Olympia either. We, as you know, you had a planning meeting as to how we can start embarking on a partnership with the city of Olympia in finding a mitigation site. Perhaps they can capture all the regional needs. That is still in the works. What I'm suggesting at this point is, absent having a legal review, I think we have an obligation to clean the site without getting to the point of displacing those individuals. And cleaning the site is what my suggestion is at this point to you. And Monica's here to give you all the details, since she is the newly entrusted interim Central Services Director. And this really what my suggestion is, that perhaps go ahead and clean the site. There is, again, a lot of used needles, a lot of sanitation components that needs to be done. But perhaps until we know what is it that we need to do, stop short of displacing those individuals who are occupying that.
You still have the floor. Do you have more? I've got questions. Do you have?
I'm done.
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
I'd like to know, and you'll get to it, I'm sure. Is it inhabited? How many folks are inhabiting that facility? Who would be removing them, and would it be forcefully removing them? And then when I look at the garbage disposal fees of $150 round trip and dump fees plus 20% markup, is that the typical charge? Are we cutting Advanced Environmental a deal on that? Those fees or not? So those are the questions I have, Monica.
All right, so I'll back up a little bit, big picture.
Okay.
By way of introduction to Commissioner Menzer, My name is Monica Gorman, and I'm the county's solid waste manager in Public Works. I'm currently acting as interim central services director. So this particular project crosses a little bit. In the past, central services was largely tasked with cleaning up garbage on public property.
Can you get the microphone just a little bit closer to you for the people at home?
As I said, in the past, central services was tasked primarily with cleaning up garbage on public property. And what this board had asked central services is they work with Department of Corrections to see if that agency would be willing to partner in doing this cleanup. Because previously these cleanups were essentially funded by general fund. And central services staff have checked with the State Department of Corrections, local agencies, and essentially because of the hazards, perceived or otherwise, we have not been successful in finding either a public agency that would assist in doing the actual cleanup. The county's landscaping firm has also declined to do the cleanup. Advanced Environmental is willing to do that, and they have the trained personnel. So some of this material is considered to be hazardous, biohazard, and so I think the cost is reflective of both collecting those materials, which can be dangerous to those people collecting them, as well as proper disposal.
And do you know about inhabitants? How many people live there?
The particular project manager who's worked on this project is out sick today. When I asked, I understood it to be just a few individuals, which is why this cost is relatively low. Typically, this would be a minimum of about $2,500 per site. That's
what struck my attention, was that it's minimal, very minimal cost. But my concern, where if there was 50 people, I could see that wouldn't be, where it'd be difficult for Olympia to absorb that. But if it's just a couple, and it's the only place, if it is the only place we have to refer someone to, I think it's incumbent upon us to refer them somewhere for housing or temporary or emergency shelter, whether it be Salvation Army or any other place. But if that's not your issue, that just want to state that. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this an example of checkerboard annexation, and this is what we ended up with?
No, this is the result of a tax title property, because this is in unincorporated county. So this
the parcel is, but isn't it surrounded by the city of Olympia?
Yeah, but I don't believe this is the result of an annexation. This is just a result of a tax title property.
And what's the plan for the tax title property? Is this a piece that the treasurer is working on
you
disposing of?
Well, he is entrusted by you to go ahead and manage and dispose of the tax title properties.
And how big of a property are we talking about?
On this, I don't know. I don't have the details of the property itself, but certainly that would be something that we can bring this.
I mean, it looks like it's might be several acres.
Could be.
Yeah.
I cannot give you a number.
I guess where I'm going with this is, might this become a mitigation site if nothing else happens? I mean, is that something that could be done as time goes on, and we go in there and we evict them out for now and clean it up? And
all that is part of within your purview, yes.
But I'm kind of with Commissioner Hutchings. I want to get them off of there. I think it's minimal impact for downtown. And then let's look at a solution, because if we just go up, if we go in and clean it up and leave them there, we're just, in a week or 6 weeks or whatever it is, we're going to be back in there. And we're just going to promote more deviant behavior on that particular piece of property. So I'm all for telling them they can go downtown, they can go wherever they want while we fix this up. Now, I think we do have sites that fall within the jurisdiction of Thurston County. Now, again, we need a legal review maybe on that. But
for mitigation?
Pardon?
We have sites for what, mitigation?
Well, I think the Olympia site is mitigation, and it's in Thurston County. We're helping on all the homeless activity in Thurston County. It just happens to be that right now they're having a mitigation site, so they can go down, they can go elsewhere besides here. I don't think we can tell them where to go, but I think they do have options.
Well, we suggested and we
We can
planned.
suggest it.
Yeah.
I want to get a legal okay that we could, that we actually have that option without putting the county at risk. However quickly that can be done is fine.
So that's what I'm hearing is the objective of the board, if I may, is to go ahead and displace those, remove those individuals using this particular property. But my suggestion was going to be before you provide that direction, I think it will be prudent for you to get a legal opinion.
I do as well. I do too.
And then I'd like to know what the plan is to go in and contact each individual, and there'd have to be a conversation with Olympia. Do you have place for them? So we just don't give them a roadmap to downtown. There's got to be a plan to put these individuals somewhere for the night whenever it happens, which could be weeks, it could be a month, I don't know. But I'd see some kind of a plan for these individuals that we're offering resources and a place for them to stay.
Yeah, and that will be as a result of the legal opinion that you may
Right.
receive.
Okay.
And we have a coordinator, and what's the involvement with that coordinator's position?
Yeah, so well, and this, just to bring to your attention at this point, and,
Okay.
And we'll follow up with a legal opinion and get back to you.
Are we going to agree to clean it up regardless, or is that something we don't need to decide?
How about if, that was going to be my suggestion, but the board objective is to go ahead and look at the option of removing those individuals, which includes obviously the cleanup. So that's what my marching orders, I believe it is, look at legal opinions, what options do we have to remove those individuals?
Or relocate the individuals.
Yeah.
Sounds more palatable to me.
I'm not too interested in being politically correct. I am interested in solving the problem for the neighborhood.
Go ahead, Robin.
Make it
I'm
real.
just curious if this is the first time we've had to clean up this site, because it seems like we've seen this one before. If not this one very much like it.
This particular one has been the source of a number of complaints from one of the property owners whose home backs to this parcel. So the parcel lies between the Chehalis Western Trail and the backyards of a number of residential neighborhoods, housing.
So,
I think we've seen it before.
And I just want to, not parsing words, but just parsing words. I'm not being politically correct when I say relocate. We remove garbage, we don't remove people. So I want to relocate people and remove the garbage.
so that's
Thank
what, give us some time to come back and give you some options. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Monica. And thank you, Jeff. All right, public testimony discussion?
Yes, you on February 5th, you received public testimony two, public testimonies. One, it was submitted a letter from the parent-teacher organization from the LP Brown. And attached in your packet is a copy of that letter, where they're suggesting the county to partner with the PTO related to a nearby property from the LP Brown school, where there has been it's been abandoned, and there has been just a nuisance property where it's a lot of garbage, so on and so forth. This is no news related to this particular property. I think the news is of this request from the PTO of LP Brown was to partner the county to quote unquote take over this property and create a new parking lot. So, and I just want to bring this to your attention. I'm going to highlight this afternoon. The county really doesn't have any means and methods just to condemn a property unless we see it as a nuisance and we go through Superior Court to get condemnation proceedings going. And it is a private property. As far as I understand, the owner, which cannot be found, is up to date on the taxes. Is up to date on all the property taxes. Really, it's not a delinquent property that perhaps a foreclosure may be warranted to recover all the taxes. So it becomes a little more complicated. So have worked with Josh Cummins to see how we can start getting into the enforcement aspect of code enforcement related to this property and work through that process as to how we can get this particular process, property cleanup. But honoring the request of the LP Brown PTO for the county to partner and take over this property and build a parking lot, that is not just possible.
Well,
Go ahead.
why can't we take some action as the Board of Health if we do have a hazardous health situation that exists there and demolish it and level it out and apply that towards that individual who owns it, apply the cost of
Yeah,
that?
under the, and again, the Board of County Commissioners, I believe, and this is just my perspective, and what they do is you don't have, with the county, you don't have the right to get in anybody's property without any permit or permission.
But how about Board of Health? I want to look at Board of Health.
And under the Board of Health, I mean, you can probably see whether garbage has a public health impact to a larger context of the population. And under the Board of Health, and again, I'm not an attorney, no plan to be one. Even within the context of the Board of Health, you have a very limited authority as to how you can get into somebody's property without their permission and do some cleanup or remove structures.
Isn't there a building there?
Yeah, but, and again,
And nobody lives there, right?
And nobody lives there.
And kids are going in there, that's the problem. It's a health issue. I would like to get a legal opinion and go in there with a bulldozer and fix it.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just giving you my perspective from.
Are you sure you want to leave me in charge?
I'm sure I don't.
I'm just giving you my perspective as a staff person. Based on the authority, my knowledge of the authority you have, you cannot just go show up with a bulldozer and take care of it.
I mean, it's a private property owned by somebody and has, you know, the question is, are they following ordinances and rules with respect to management of that property?
Right, they're
And
not.
I haven't seen it, and I would imagine, from what I've heard, that, and Josh can maybe explain detail, but I'm understanding that they're in violation of several different.
Right. And we do have a process to go through this.
That's what I want to pursue.
Is code compliance. We send a notice. They don't do anything. There is options even to put a lien on their property. There is ways. And I'd just like to remind, particularly to a property that we went through in Kaiser Road, similar to this.
I know.
It took us 20 years. 20 years until we can actually have this property being all cleaned up. Now it's in somebody's hands, and this property is going to be redeveloped and good for the community. So the reason that I'm using this is not as easy as a county government. And just think about even your own property. You know, if somebody wants to come in and just do whatever the government perceives to be the right thing, there is some rights that property owners have.
Oh, okay, I have to say that
Hang on. You still have more?
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Olympia has the ability, they created, when they declared a emergency for the homelessness issue, for an example, and apparently they had some authority within their existing city codes or what, that they were able to create mitigation and such without kind of bypassing all this bureaucratic nightmare that exists out there. Yeah. I would like to have somebody legal from the prosecutor's office here advising us that we can or we can't, or we can create something that similar to what Olympia has done. We've created an opioid emergency, a homeless emergency. Hopefully we could use those to go in and take some action without waiting for a bunch of bureaucratic nightmare to take place, and somebody gets raped in there or somebody overdoses, we've got a dead body in there. Why can't we take the initiative? Let's not wait 20 years. We might have to take a little bit of a chance, But I'm all for the bulldozer approach, and I make no bones about it.
Okay,
So,
I vote he's not in charge next week.
Before that thought, I'd like to answer is Commissioner Edwards, two different things.
Yeah.
And the emergency resolution the City of Olympia has, which I'm getting a copy, and we're going to explore how you can probably take a similar action, is two different things.
Okay.
What allows is allows a different land use under the emergency in properties that perhaps the city owns and other properties the county may own. But this particular ordinance, I don't believe the City of Olympia has the right to get in somebody else's property and do what you're planning to do on this one.
Are you going to give us a briefing on this? Yes?
Well,
It's a yes or no?
Commissioner,
yes.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner here, I just want, are you going to be doing a brief? I'm not asking you to do it now, but are you going to give us one?
Well, I can give you a little background on this topic, and then yes, we will be doing a briefing as well.
Okay, because what I'd like you to include, I'll come to Commissioner Mensert, is what I'd like you to include is when we amended Title 26, we talked about egregious violations, and this sounds very egregious, though I haven't seen it. And I don't know what kind of problematic issues are arson all the way up.
if I may, you removed the word egregious on the last amendment of Title 26.
Oh, okay. Then we have some other wording in there, I know it. But then eventually getting through the process of abatement, if we need to. So go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I just want to know, I just want to know what the process is for enforcing our code. Nothing drives me crazier than having rules that aren't enforced. So, and I understand we haven't had the staffing and enforcement like capabilities that we probably have needed, but that's the process that I would like to see what the options are before we start declaring emergencies.
Yeah.
Because I want to help obviously we've gotten so much input from the school and the parent-teacher organization. Like, I'm absolutely convinced that we need to have some resolution.
Certainly.
Who first? County Manager, anything before Josh jumps in?
No, I just want to reemphasize that I'm working on that resolution right now for you to consider, related, similar to what the City of Olympia has passed, related to mitigation sites,
Okay.
and really it's related to density within those properties. And I'm working on that, and this is coming. And that was the result of your planning session that you had 2 weeks ago. That was one of my marching orders.
Josh.
So again, Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. All of the input that you have all expressed in terms of frustration and the level of why can't we just do something, we have felt as staff, and we completely acknowledge the input from the citizens as well. Our staff, our compliance team, as well as our planners and permitters have worked directly with these individuals at the LP Brown property, as well as multiple others throughout the county. And County Manager Chavez referenced the Kaiser property that took over 20 years. One of the things that we're working towards in CPED, again, is consistency. We don't want to wait until the stars are aligned for an ad hoc solution to one of these problems. We would like to build a consistent process that utilizes the recently passed Title 26, that then is understood that here are the paths towards abatement, lien, whatever the solution may be, and bring those to the Board of County Commissioners for recommendation. There's always going to be a financial component. There's always going to be a staffing component. But from my perspective, the first thing that we need is a process that adheres to the Title 26 that's already been passed. And so our staff, to answer your question, Commissioner Edwards, has been working diligently with the Commissioner's assistance as well to address each one of these properties in a consistent and applicable manner that gets us to a place where when we get these in the future, we have something to use that doesn't take 20 years like Kaiser Road. And so I understand the frustration of the folks around the LP Brown property. We have, like I said, multiple others, and you will probably receive information from them as well. But know that CPED is working to find a path forward. We're in that process now.
Thank you.
So I will respond this afternoon to that comment stating that we received that comment. We're cognizant of the condition of the property, and we're moving forward and doing some code enforcement.
All right.
Not going to talk about bulldozers or anything.
No.
Yeah, okay. Josh, thank you. Thank you very kindly. And now we're at the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance.
Yeah, and you also received a document which is included in your property, in your packet property. And this came from the Washington 3% group. and where it was urging the commission to consider passing this resolution, which, you know, the gist is to preserve the Second Amendment. And as I read the resolution, it's very encompassing and very restrictive. My point of view is perhaps it's not the purview of the county to implement this type of resolutions here at local government. I also received, which was distributed to you, I believe yesterday, an email from Mr. Tony Wilson, and I'm going to distribute it just in case you didn't get it, related to this topic, where Mr. Wilson encourages the commission not to take any particular action related to this particular resolution. So that's my recommendation to the board. If you concur with my recommendation, this afternoon I will report back stating that, that at this point the board is not planning to consider adopting any sort of resolution related to this. That's my recommendation.
Go ahead.
I guess I'd just, without reviewing this, knowing everything about it, has legal looked at it? I mean, is that something, it seems to me there's already a state constitution that addresses this.
Yeah.
Washington State Constitution. And I don't know what we could do to force the state to do anything.
What is concerning to me is on sections 3 and 4 of this proposed, which talks about prohibitions and penalties. And that is probably, and I'm not going to say whether that is legal, even if you're considering to take this, because legal has not been taking this, but just on the surface, it appears that it's not up to the board to consider this, and this is just my humble perspective.
Ty?
I don't think that this resolution is consistent with the law of the United States Supreme Court, even if it were procedurally something we ought to do. So I'm absolutely opposed to consideration of this.
Anything further?
No.
Yeah, and I haven't read Mr. Wilson's letter just yet, and I read the other document over the weekend. And my concern is, well, I've got several concerns, but I am opposed to enacting some type of ordinance like this without legal review and in-depth discussion. But I'm not the least bit interested. I just don't think it's in the county purview.
So I will respond this afternoon in terms of you have discussed this matter, and at this point you're not planning to take any particular action on this resolution. That's all I have.
All right, and then finally, the name game. Courthouse project name.
There's only 8 minutes left.
Yep. Do you want to perhaps put that?
Maybe I can move that to a different, but at some point you've heard that perhaps the Civic Center Courthouse project,
Yep.
you know, is creating a little bit of confusion. And perhaps we're at the right time within the development of the project per se, that you may want to consider a different name, if that is desired from the board.
And this is, we have a project, or courthouse project update at noon tomorrow. You want to bring it up then, or would that be separate? That's a different audience.
Yeah, that would be an option, or you can probably make a decision among yourselves what the new name is, or you would like to have an ad hoc conversation tomorrow.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess being we're on this topic, I've heard a couple different times now, what are you talking about, a convention center? I thought we did this, or, you know, just from citizens' feedback. So maybe it is an issue. I don't know if it's an issue or not,
yeah.
But I've heard that. The other thing that I have done in a couple of different arenas, I could make a list like fire commissioners or restaurant, coffee shops, or whatever. I have just asked, do you agree with building a new courthouse downtown or not? I'm just trying to be simple. I'm not prefacing it with I do, I don't, or anything about it. And I haven't found anybody that wants to do it yet. Now, I know there's going to be a committee that is out there that's going to be the cheerleader for the cause. But I'm almost seeing an overwhelming negative attitude when I ask, and I've been contemplating, is there anything that we can do to allow public input so we get a broad base of support? I mean, you might not believe it now, but in my other past history in the community, I used to go to the barber shop every week, a different one. Used to. And I'm not kidding you, you get a lot of information at the barber shop. Now, I even stopped at a few beauty parlors once in a while when I wanted to ask questions about what the public, what do you hear them talking about, this or this? I would almost like to see us do some kind of a informal, formal questioning the public, because I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge out there on what the issue is, even if we ought to be moving forward with the issue. So I'm still in a quandary here about, is this even feasible, to be honest with you?
So as part of the process, we are going to be conducting a survey. And as you may recall, last week we had an executive session related what will be the parameters in which, how we cannot ask the public whether it can support in a particular ballot measure. But we do going to be exploring with the public whether they understand about the need of the project. That's really is going to be, and that's going to be conducting a survey, hopefully before May, before you may consider an action to put this particular project on the ballot. But also, you as an individual commissioner, as you've heard last week, you can go out and advocate for the project. Sure. That's within your purview, outside of the county offices, and not using necessarily county resources. For us as staff, I think it was very clear last week that we need to be extremely careful as to how we don't come across even with messaging, as to how we may try to influence the voters as to any particular ballot measure. So we have to remain objective. We have to remain keen on the need of the project, but not necessarily asking the public as to how they're going to vote in any particular measure. So that was very clear. And again, the survey that is coming up, I believe, is going to be addressing what you're looking for. What is the public understands about the need of this particular project? And hopefully we can get to that point.
So regarding the courthouse project name, you'll bring that back later for a meaningful discussion where we have time?
Or if you like, you can probably have an ad hoc conversation tomorrow.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Go ahead.
No, just, I mean, I've had similar experience to Commissioner Edwards, and I think it's a lot of just I don't think it's people don't want to do it. I think they just don't know. Because a lot of times I've had conversation and people are like, what is this about? And I explain it and everybody's like, oh, okay. But nobody knows coming out of the gate why people aren't clamoring for it. So that's what I'm really concerned about, the campaign part and how that gets structured, and that's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just something that we're going to have to deal with quickly.
Yeah. So if you like, I can probably ask Rick to include that on the agenda tomorrow, the name of the project. So and we'll go that direction.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Anything else? You got 30 seconds? Anyone?
I have things, but I'm going to say I don't have time because I got to get to the Capitol, so I'll save it for the next. I'll save it for the next meeting.
All righty.
A couple of new items.
Thank you. That concludes the agenda setting work session for the 19th of February.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.